Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today we've got a bit of a spicy fun one for you. One of my favourite cards from the Modern Horizons 3 set is Phlage, Titan of Fire's Fury, or FLAVA PHLAGE as I like to call it. So this is a removal spell that keeps you topped up with life and can win the game very quickly when you turn the corner. So I'm a big fan of this one. And you may notice that in recent months I've been really enjoying Leyline Dowser. This is a powerful card advantage engine. We mill a card. If it's an instant or sorcery, we put it into our hand. And you can tap an untapped legendary creature to untap it. So FLAVA PHLAGE can untap this when we evoke it the first time around. It's not an evoke, you know what I mean. And this is just going to draw us a bunch of cards. So this is kind of what the deck is built around. I've built lots of decks around this before, and every time it's felt really good. So our deck is designed to draw lots of cards with this. So our win conditions in this deck. Phlage. If this goes into the graveyard, that's fine. We don't care if that gets milled. Timeless Dragon. If this gets milled, it's just a win condition later on. That's fine. We don't care if it gets milled. Forth Eorlingas. This is something that we will find once we do the mill, so this will go into our hand. And this is both a secondary draw engine to go alongside the Dowser, as well as just being one of the best win conditions in Legacy, just the ultimate fireball. And the rest of our deck is pretty much just stuff we're going to be getting off of the Leyline Dowser. We've got a Shatterskull Smashing, and which is a land we can find off the Leyline Dowser, which is cool. And we have a Witch Enchanter, which is the only thing that is kind of bad with the Leyline Dowser, really. But this is just like a free thing that we get to run in our mana base and comes up and is good. So we've got a whole bunch of things. So in the Boros colours, we are going to be primarily removing creatures. We're going to have a little bit of a tough time against, spell combo decks. That's just the way things go. That's not what we're aiming for here. We're aiming to kill creature decks. So we've got Lightning Bolts for little creatures. We've got Source Plowshares for big creatures. We've got some Council's Judgments to take out whatever permanent we need. We've got some Wrath of God and Wrath of the Skies for different forms of sweeper. We've got a couple of Reprieve, which is a card that people were quite excited about when it came out, and I've never played it, so I thought this is probably the best shell to play it in. This is something we can find off of the Leyline Dowser. It can trip, so it's never going to be that bad. It can be a nice tempo play to get us towards casting a Wrath or whatever. And we have a Cleansing Wildfire. Destroy target land. Its opponent its controller searches for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield tapped. So this is basically Ghost Quarter, but it comes in tapped. But we get to cantrip off this. So there's definitely a lot of lands at the moment that we need to be hitting, whether it's Eye of Ugin, whether it's Cloud Post, whether it's Urza's Saga. This just gives us 2 extra Wastelands and at least cantrips, so it's not a bad way of putting more cards in the graveyard to get our Phlage out. So I'm certainly interested to see how this plays. I know a few people quite like this one, but I've never really had a chance to delve into it too much. And that's pretty much the deck. We're pretty straightforward. We're going to remove your stuff. We've got Phlage as part of our removal package as well. We're going to remove all your opponent's stuff. Then we're going to do some Forth Eorlingas-y goodness. Our mana base is very basic heavy. We've got mountains. We've got plains. We've got 1 plateau. This means we get to run Vista and Arid Mesa as our fetch lands. And we got a full grip of Wastelands. Again, things like Urza's Saga isn't great if you're trying to one-for-one removal stuff. So having the Wasteland is really good. I'll just quickly talk about Wrath of the Skies. It's a new card that you might not know. X white sorcery, you get X energy counters, then you may pay any amount of energy, destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the amount of energy paid. This is basically White Pernicious Deed, which is pretty spicy. The fact that it hits artifacts means that we can hit artifact lands with it, which is pretty cool. So I'm curious to see how this plays out today. Maybe we want more of these instead of Wrath of Gods, I don't know, but I've played Boros Control every now and then on the channel. Not that often, but I do like to dip into it here and there. And I will link the last time I played Boros Control in the description. I think I played a Johnny Vengeance and stuff, and the deck felt pretty good. We smashed creature decks, which is what we're hoping to do today. And Wrath of God is just a nice sweeper to have access to. Sideboard-wise, we need to address the fact that we're not very good against some of these combo-y decks. So we've got 4 Silence in the sideboard. So this would probably be better as a Vexing Ball, but sometimes you just want to lean into your theme. So we're going to see how hard we can lean into it with the Leyline Dowser and see if we can really leverage that synergy, because then we can actually dig to our hate pieces with the Leyline Dowser. Then we've got 4 Purify the Grave. This is a card I've been hot on for quite some time because you can't have this griefed out of your hand. If your opponent griefs this out of your hand, it's in your graveyard, so you can still basically counterspell one of their graveyard reanimation spells. So I'm a big fan of Purify the Grave. You could play Surgical Extraction here, but I wanted to showcase this card that I've been a bit hot on, and I've seen a few people talking about it recently as well on Twitter and stuff. Then we've got a couple more removal spells for big creatures, your Murktide Regents, your Atraxas, that sort of jam. So just a couple of Path to Exiles, why not? Then we have 2 Ruinations. So this can go alongside our Wasteland and our Cleansing Wildfire. and just bury our opponents if they've got some non-basic lands we want to blow up. So the Eldrazi deck and the Cloud Post deck are the two I'm thinking of, but then there's also these like 5-color Yorion up the beanstalk piles that we can also just smash all their lands with. And then we've got 3 Pyroblasts to help to get things like Ruination through. This can also counter Cepheid Illusionist and Nadu, which are 2 things I'm somewhat worried about. We should be okay against the Psychic Frog because we've got hard removal in our deck, but it doesn't hurt to have some Pyroblast to throw in the mix as well. So that's the list. I don't know how it's going to fare, but I would imagine we're going to beat a lot of creature decks. But we're probably going to get absolutely ruined by like Necro decks and things like that. But that is the price you pay sometimes. The price you pay for the greatness of FLAVA PHLAGE. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's just jam in and start blowing up some creatures. Alright, our opening hand has 2 removal spells, one of them being a win condition. We've got a Cleansing Wildfire, which may or may not be useful, but at the very least it's a cantrip. I am down to clown with this one. Right, it's obviously going to lose to certain things, but if our opponent's playing a creature deck, which once upon a time generally suggests they are, then we are in a good spot. Elvish Spirit Guide. Oh no, is this an unfair creature deck? Okay, so we're into Cloud Post Town, are we? A Vexing Bauble. Well, we don't care about that, so that's nice. I don't think it's worth spending the Wasteland on a Glimmer Post here. We've got bigger fish to fry. I would like to go and fetch a basic Plains, I believe, off of this Vista. So I will, because we want to put cards in our graveyard for the Phlage. So this looks like Cloud Post. Alright, there is the card itself. Our opponent is about to read a card we're going to play. That's for sure. We'll go and get a Plains here. And then we'll go and get... I don't know if we want a Mountain or a Plains with this one just yet. So we're just going to play this Mountain. And we're going to Cleansing Wildfire this Cloud Post. They could have a crop rotation here, because they've got the Spirit Guide to pitch. Yep, this is pretty good because this fizzles our Cleansing Wildfire. And we don't get to draw a card. It's still a 2-for-1. Wow, it's a 1-for-1 actually. No, it's a 2-for-1 actually because they pitched the Spirit Guide, yeah. Of Asuva, sure. Khan, the Great Creator. So we can Lightning Bolt this, we can Wasteland. What are they going to reveal? So our opponent can definitely go over what we're doing. That's what Cloud Post does. It goes over the top. So we need to be able to impact what our opponent's doing over the next few turns. A Mycosynth Lattice. We could do something really gross with Wrath of the Skies at some point. I think step 1 is to Lightning Bolt their Khan. Step 2 is probably to Wasteland their Cloud Post. Actually, no, we Wasteland the copied one in case they've got Echoing Deeps. Then it won't come in as a Cloud Post. It will come in as a Asuva, which then comes in as a Cloud Post. Is that right? We'll take this one out. So we've got the Dowser. We can start drawing some cards next turn. A Wasteland. Not going to get a lot of joy out of that one. But they could just play another Khan. If they minus this, we can then have to Phlage this to make sure that this doesn't get more activations. If they plus it, that's actually going to be somewhat annoying for us. Yeah, they've plussed it. We need to not... Okay, a Wasteland is certainly a useful one to have here. Let's get our Wasteland going. Let's take out this Cloud Post. Get the Dowser. Our opponent's a long way off of this Mycosynth Lattice now. We can't activate the Dowser yet, but we will get rid of this card at some stage. We may as well have this in play because we're unlikely to need this Source of Plowshares immediately. We can just wait till our turn and do it. So we'll be mana efficient there. I think these must be the basics from the new set there. Assassin's Creed one, I think. Not that I know any of the cards that are in that set. So maybe we'll get undone by one of them in this league. And that'll be exciting for everyone. Alright, we are in Sacrificing Vexing Bauble stage of the game. It's interesting they did that in their draw step. I think it might have just been they forgot to go to their main step. And they'd already drawn their card, so it doesn't really matter. So we can play Phlage on the front side this turn and then play it on the back side the turn after. It's not quite Uro, but it does some good stuff. Right, they're plussing their Khan. Another Phlage. I think white mana is going to be more important than red mana here, so we're going to crack this for a Plains. And it's FLAVA PHLAGE time. So we dome Khan for a little bit, and the Phlage goes away. They can like minus the Khan and get a Tormod's Crypt or something, but then we just play this other Phlage, then finish off the Khan. And as long as our opponent's not producing a lot of mana, we should be okay. We're trying to dodge something like Myco Spawn Eldrazi, whatever it's called. That is going to be pretty good here. And just ramp them out and give them a body that we need to respect. Not that we have to respect it that much when we are creature removal deck. Once upon a time, what are you going to find? Urza's Tower. That only taps for 1 mana until they get the land that's all types. I can never remember the name of. Nexus? Playing a Nexus? Something like that? This could be the Myco Spawn. It is the Myco Spawn. So this can get them a Cloud Post. It's probably going to get them the thing that makes it... Yeah, there you go, the Nexus. Because that will make their Urza Saga tap for 3. Right, they're minusing here. Are we going to see the Tormod's Crypt here? We are. Okay, so this is going to play out exactly like I said it would. The issue we have now is the Mycosynth Lattice. If they have another Karn coming up, that can certainly prove problematic for us. Okay, we don't even need to throw our Plateau in the mix here. Although, do we want our opponent to Wasteland this? I don't think so. If we're going to cast this Phlage, we can't activate this until we've played the Phlage anyway. Let's get this going. Let's dome the Karn. Gain some more life. That can go in the bin. Do I want this in the graveyard? I think so. If our opponent wants to spend mana on, well, like wasting this, it puts another card in our graveyard and reduces their mana count. Another Karn. Will you stop it, opponent? Oh, we were supposed to activate this Dowser in response. That was really loose of me. I was too busy being annoyed that they'd drawn their third Karn. Yeah, that could be a bit of a spew for us. Let's just plow this and get this out of the way. We want more cards in our graveyard. Yeah, we could have one more card in our graveyard now. That was a big miss from me. Forth Eorlingas, you say? I don't hate it. Alright, so we'll attack one at them so we get the Monarch, and then we'll attack one at Karn. Another Phlage, that can help us. So they can just play this Lattice as the only thing they're doing. But we do get to attack the Karn down. They need to plus the Karn. They can plus the Karn on the Lattice. That's pretty solid. And then the Karn has to keep plussing another Forth Eorlingas. We can't cast any of our spells because of this Lattice. If we attack 2 creatures at the Karn... Yeah, I think our opponent just has us in the lock here. I don't think there's anything we can draw that's going to work our way out of this Lattice lock. Fortunately, we've got 2 Ruinations in our sideboard, which is not the worst. We need our opponent to not animate their Lattice, but they're kind of showing us that they're going to do it every turn, so we may as well concede this one. Yeah, we missed on one activation of the Leyline Dowser. It didn't end up mattering, I don't believe. We would have milled over the Forth Eorlingas and drawn it, and then we would have drawn the Phlage, which wouldn't have been enough to do anything about this Karn anyway. Yeah, okay. We definitely got some good tools for this one. Ruination feels pretty strong. Do we like any of these things? I don't believe we need any of this. Like, the path is fine. We want to keep bolts because they will hit Karn. Removal for lands is a nice place to be. Do we need the Reprieves? They're quite good at bouncing back an expensive spell that maybe shuts our opponent down for a turn. Wrath of the Skies can clean up some various bits and pieces if we need them to. Do we need these Wraths of God? They do kill a big Eldrazi if they manage to stick a big Eldrazi. But if they manage to stick a big Eldrazi, we probably just lose the game. Ulamog isn't indestructible. If they cast an Emrakul, they're probably going to be able to turn it sideways. So I don't think we need the Wraths. Help if I'm on the correct screen, wouldn't it? There we go. I was on the main deck there. Okay, so yeah, we get rid of these Wraths. I think that's probably fine. I quite like the Wrath of the Skies for cleaning up a bunch of things. Our opponent might have some Urza Sagas potentially that we can deal with this. It's just a flexible way of removing some stuff. Sure. There's not a Ruination in this hand. We can remove some stuff and then start doing this. Is this good enough? I don't know if it is. I think we can do it a little bit better. Yep, we have a Wasteland. That is certainly on the better side of things. Do we want... I think we do want the Forth Eorlingas for now. So I'm going to put back the Wrath of the Skies. Because the Forth Eorlingas can pressure our opponent in multiple ways. Let's play a Mountain. We can hold up a Lightning Bolt. I don't think this Lightning Bolt is going to be relevant, but if our opponent plays something like an Elvish Reclaimer, which you don't normally see in these decks anymore, they've gone beyond the need for Elvish Reclaimer. I'm not going to hit their green source here. They can just rotate it away. Let's go and get ourselves a Plains. And I will deploy the Dowser. Next turn we can Wasteland, activate Dowser, and Lightning Bolt. Right, they're crop rotating now. They're going to go get Cloud Post. No, they're going to get the Nexus. So they could have a Thought Not Seer this turn. There's the tower. The One Ring. Alright, we have things that can answer that, like Council's Judgment. Okay, so I think step 1 is probably activate the Dowser. We milled a Wasteland. That's unfortunate, isn't it? We'll play this Wasteland from hand. And we'll take out this Planar Nexus. That turns on their Cloud Post and their Urza Saga. If our opponent's life total gets low, we can just direct burn our opponent's face. So we might be doing a Forth Eorlingas for 1, just to start pressuring our opponent, depending on what they play here. Okay. Leyline of the Void. I think we want the white source here. Well, let's just make a horse. Get into the old card advantage machine. Cleansing Wildfire. Not unhappy to have that one. We're really just looking for the Ruination and then a few turns time we can just unload that on our opponent, and they'll be very sad. Playing a Nexus. Alright, so they've got some more mana. A Sowing Mycospawn. You have a Mycospawn. Interesting they didn't tap their ring first. Right, so there's a Cloud Post. Our mana here is slightly awkward. I think we're going to activate the Dowser first. So we can Lightning Bolt our opponent's thing, or we can try and... I think we have to Cleansing Wildfire the Planar Nexus here. This is effectively worth 3 mana. So we Cleansing Wildfire this. If we draw a red source, we can then Lightning Bolt this and attack. The reason we drew this first is if we drew something like Plow or something, we can then direct it. That creature. Okay. We did not find the thing we wanted here. Are we going to get dismembered? We did not get dismembered. Alright, so we found the mountain, so we can cast a Ruination next turn. But depending on what our opponent plays, we might not want the Ruination right now. We might just want to deal some Lightning Bolt action. A kicked Mycospawn. Yeah, that's miserable. So we don't get to Ruination next turn. Understood. A Vexing Bauble. That doesn't do anything. Intrigued they still have that. So they're going to attack here. We probably have to chump block. We only get to remove 1 creature, which is really annoying. A Plow. That is a handy one to have. So we can Lightning Bolt a creature. We can Plow a creature. And we can also Leyline Dowse. But I think we probably Leyline Dowse in our opponent's turn, because we might draw something useful off of the Monarch. That is the Monarch. Once upon a time. A Cloud Post. Okay. A Cleansing Wildfire. That's not the land we're after. If we can cast this Ruination, I think we'll be alright. I don't know how bad this turn is going to be for us. Is it just another Mycospawn? Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. That's a pretty spicy one, isn't it? If we plow this, we lose the Monarch. I think we can't afford to let this hang around when we don't have any more white sources. Yeah, we lose the Monarch. Is a touch annoying. Our opponent also has loads of life now, so we can't just try the Burning Out plan. Feels like we're just going to be 1 turn behind. I think there was a turn where we missed a land drop. Or the second Mycospawn. There's a lot of stuff where things have gone awkward for us. Like bolting this so we don't discard makes sense. But I think we're probably losing this one. Our opponent's deck doesn't really operate on the normal creature axis because they just go so over the top with all this mana. We have the answer for it, we just kind of missed on the land drop. Which is kind of what happened in the first game to an extent. We were just slightly behind being able to deal with that card. Yep, high casting an Emrakul, we got no permanents. Alright, I'll take that loss. I think if you want to beat this matchup, just play more Ruinations and you'll probably be fine. But yeah, it was a little bit awkward. Let's go to round 2. We got 2 creature removals, we got a threat. We'll keep this one. We got some interaction with our opponent's land. This is what our deck does. Either this is going to be good enough in the matchup or it's not. Are we against another Cloud Post deck? What is going on in the world today? I think Lightning Bolt is probably better. Would I like to Wasteland our opponent's Urza's Tower? Probably. It likely means that the second land I'm going to play was the Cave. Planar Cave, Planar Nexus, whatever it's called. Where are all the creature decks of yesteryear? Give me all the Death and Taxes players. That's what I'm looking for. They keep a 1-lander. That's certainly a choice. I don't really want to play into their Wasteland with our only red source, so I'm going to just get this Plains going. Plateau just worse than a mountain for us right now. A Cloud Post, you say? Who would have thought? We can hold it Reprieve or we can cycle the Timeless Dragon. Maybe this Plateau should be the Elegant Parlor of Vesuva getting a Cloud Post. We've seen this song and dance before, haven't we? Plane Cycle. We can only get planes, I think, of this. So we finally found a mountain. Would I like to hold up a Reprieve or would I like to get this Phlage going? I don't think the Phlage is doing anything for us. It's just like 3 damage to the face right now. I think we're just going to hold and try and Reprieve our opponent's spell. Hold up the Plow, hold up the Bolt. We've got a few little options kicking around. I don't think it's worth trying to Wrath of the Skies or anything like that. Because all it will mean is our opponent draws a card and we just get some energy. Namely 1 energy, which doesn't feel very good. Planar Nexus. That is a Locus. 6 mana. Certainly the sort of thing that I'd be interested in reprieving. I don't think our opponent's going to play around Reprieve because it's not a card that really sees play. I don't think it's a great card, to be honest. But we're trying it out. A Sowing Mycospawn. Well, this is a terrible card to Reprieve. So that's fun, isn't it? Right, we'll float a red mana. So Cloud Post decks are traditionally very good against any sort of slow control deck. And we're a slow control deck that doesn't even have any Force of Wills or anything. Not the Force of Will makes a difference against the Myco Spawn. Yikes. Yeah, Reprieving that just means that they get the triggers all over again. So that's a bad time for us. Do we want to hold up this Reprieve? I think that's still better than the Phhlage here. We can also plow if that's the thing we need to do. But again, if they've got another Myco Spawn, then we're just cold to that, I think. A Vesuva, they've got another Cloud Post. They're just going to so Myco Spawn us again. An Ulamog. I don't think we can beat this. I think we're just... Our opponent's just land destructioning us so hard. Alright. I would like some Ruinations, please. I don't think we want the Wraths. Do we want the Plows? I think I like the Council's Judgment because of what it does to our opponent's One Ring. How good is Wrath of the Skies? Would I rather have Path than Wrath of the Skies? Maybe. Wrath of the Skies gives us an interesting answer to a bunch of permanents if they have them, but I think maybe we just want the Path just to kill some guys. This does ramp them, and that's kind of what their deck's trying to do, which makes me a little bit fearful. Maybe I don't want them. The Wrath of the Skies, maybe we just want the actual Wrath. Or we could split the difference. The worst of both worlds, as we like to call it. We have 2 Wastelands. That used to be enough to beat Cloud Post decks sometimes. But that's not the world we're living in anymore. Cloud Post went from a very sort of fringe deck to being one of the actual legitimate decks of Legacy right now. Alright, I will play a Plains so we can hold up this Plow. We need to leverage these Wastelands in a big way. And Urza's Tower into a Vexing Bauble that we don't care about. Would I rather have a Dowser? Well, this suggests our opponent's just going to do a 4-mana thing next turn. But if we take a turn off of doing Wasteland stuff to Dowser, then we get better turns moving forward. Am I alright taking 1 turn off to let our opponent have more mana? I think it's worth doing. It could definitely go wrong for us. But if we're just wastelanding our opponent and not doing anything ourselves, then we're not really changing the game state. We're just slowing our opponent down and hoping they don't draw more land. But if we can actually do something in those turns, then we actually get to go somewhere. The One Ring. Yep, that's a pretty strong one. It's not really the turn for Forth Eorlingas, is it? Alright, let's... There's no point dowsering right now, is there? Maybe we get... Oh, a Reprieve is kind of interesting. I don't really want the Reprieve right now. I think I'm just going to smash this. So we could have left up the Plow. So they're doing this now in case they draw the Spirit Guide or the Crop Rotation, which tells us they probably have one of the 2 in their hand. But we don't really want to Plow just yet anyway. They don't have any haste creatures. So if we draw the Lightning Bolt, it's kind of more efficient. I don't know. Maybe we're supposed to leave up the thing. But if we drew with that way, and then if we drew the Cleansing Wildfire, we'd have the option of casting Cleansing Wildfire that turn instead of Wastelanding. A Boseiju. A Disruptor Flute. This is going to name Wasteland, I would imagine. It means at least they can't Wasteland us. It's kind of terrifying that you're worried about the Cloud Post deck blowing up all your lands now. What has become of us? A Wrath of God. It's not really the one we want, is it? So the Wasteland is off, so I don't need to play it out. We can just play out this Plains, hold up Reprieve and the Leyline Dowser. If not, we can just cycle the Timeless Dragon. Go and get ourselves a Plateau, since our opponent's not going to be Wastelanding us. Although that will get hit by our own Ruination. They know about this Reprieve that we have as well. We don't care about the baubles. A Disruptor Flute. Would I like to just cantrip here? I think I would. Another land, don't hate that. I think it's Fireball time. Okay, we just milled a land. That's fine. A Tabernacle. Do I want to play this for the purposes of Phhlage later on? I think so. Alright, let's get the mini Fireball going. Our opponent can't cast any free spells to interact with this, but they could have Elvish Spirit Guide into something. Alright, we get the Monarch. Dig me towards the Ruination, please. Council's Judgment, that will answer the One Ring. Although we might be in a position where we just want to dome our opponent for a bunch of damage and let the One Ring be our win condition. Because they're getting towards needing to replace the One Ring. And if they replace the One Ring, we can then blow up their new copy before it starts drawing them too many cards. Playing a Nexus. That turns the Urza's Tower on. Another One Ring. So we don't get to attack our opponent for any value now. They're going to start drawing some cards with that One Ring. Or they're going to be a bit sheepish about it. A Disruptor Flute. So they can name Leyline Dowser if they want to. Yep, they have named the Leyline Dowser. So our opponent's got loads of cards in hand, which makes me question how worth is it to deal with this One Ring, should we just get rid of the Disruptor Flute on Wasteland? And then we can Wasteland our opponent's Plane of Nexus. And then send them back with some more mana. Obviously, if we draw Ruination, then we have a very different game plan. A Cleansing Wildfire. That cantrips. Let's take this out. Another Forth Eorlingas. That could be useful down the line. I'm going to cast this Council Judgment now. This gives us the ability to take out this Disruptor Flute. Or we can take out the One Ring. Our opponent has so many cards already. It's quite a tricky one. We could take out the one on Leyline Dowser to try and get more cards. This is a tough call. There's 3 potential options. I've got to hope our opponent doesn't have particularly good things, so maybe the One Ring is what we just say no to. Although our opponent's life total is quite low, so maybe we can cheese them. I think I'm going to take this Wasteland naming Disruptor Flute. So we can't deal damage to them through the One Ring. So our little knights get to be held back again. But next turn we can put 3 more knights into play. And that might be enough to kill our opponent if they don't do anything too scary. Another land. Whatever, really. It's not the Ruination we would really like. Like the Plane of Nexus here would be very good and allow them to do like Myco Spawn nonsense. Which is, I think the best card in the Cloud Post deck is the Myco Spawn. That card is very impressive to me. It's going to be a Plane of Nexus. Yes. So they can kick a Myco Spawn. But they're effectively on 7. Okay. Lose a land here. So if they're on 7, they block this. We have 3 guys. We have 4 guys to get through. So we can kill them with Forth Eorlingas in theory next turn. Or put them low enough that the One Ring kills them. But we'll see what they fetch up here. An Eye of Ugin. We lose a land. This is reasonable. So we put our opponent to 1 now and hope that that's good enough. Let's make some more human knight tokens. Is it good enough? Elvish Spirit Guide into Glacial Chasm off of a Crop Rot. Okay, maybe not. Maybe they've got a Glimmer Post. And that puts them just enough life total. And we've got to hope we can survive another turn and then finish them off with our other creatures. They didn't need the Spirit Guide because they had the Eye of Ugin as a forest off of the Yavimaya. So opponent goes to 1. That is another turn. They do get the Monarch, but they basically play at sorcery speed for the most part. So that extra card they get off the Monarch isn't the big deal. But we could see like Glacial Chasm here. We could see all sorts of things. Another copy of the One Ring. So this stops them dying from their existing One Ring. They're probably not tapping this unless they've got more Glimmer Post action. So we need to draw a burn spell. Right, so got another Glimmer Post. It's all getting a bit awkward. Never a bad time to draw the Ruination. Maybe I should just slap 4 of those in our sideboard. Myco Spawn. Okay. Not my favourite. A Cloud Post. Sure. I didn't kick that, which is curious. Means they've got another play they want to make. Okay, they just want the Once Upon a Time going. See what they reveal. So if we draw Ruination this turn, we'd probably win. If we don't, we lose. I think that's more or less the situation we're in right now. They didn't attack. That's interesting. They've got the One Ring protection. Unless they're worried that we've got like Bone Crusher Giant, because the spell side of Bone Crusher Giant is damage can't prevent this turn. Phlage. What does Phlage actually achieve for us? We can't dome them here, but we can dome one of their creatures. That's probably good enough. One of these. Gain a bit more life. So we can Wasteland our opponent here. What is the name? If we take out the Cloud Post, that reduces our opponent from having 1, 2, 3, 4 mana by doing that. If we take this out, it's -2, 3 mana. So that's the best one. This is obviously a thing they can tutor with. This is 4 mana, 5, 6, 7. So that's just a tutor. And then they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. So they can so Myco Spawn. Would I rather stop them from tutoring or stop them having 4 mana this turn? I think it's stopping them having 4 mana. This Elvish Spirit Guide into Crop Rot, it wasn't. No point attacking into their One Ring. Can we draw the Ruination? No. Wrath of the Skies. That can blow up everything. Like, it can blow up this, this, and this. It will take out all of our human knight tokens, though, which is on the awkward side. We can plow their blocker and bash for 8. Right, they played another tower, so that's quite a lot of mana. So this looks like... Oh, dear. Is this just Big Ulamog? It's an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. That is a slightly different kettle of fish, isn't it? We can take a hit for 15. Can we sacrifice enough permanents? Maybe. Maybe we can. Alright, ploughing. Plough can't target the Emrakul. It has protection from coloured spells. Maybe we needed the 4 Ruinations and maybe 2 wasn't good enough. A Caracas. Okay, so now we don't get to take any more turns if our opponent knows what they're doing with their deck. So what they do is they attack, they bounce the Emrakul, they just take infinite turns until we have no permanents, then we die. Yeah, this matchup feels absolutely horrible. Which is not really a surprise because our opponent is a creature deck, but they're not a creature deck in a way where they're playing creatures out. Their creatures just pretty much win the game on their own. And this card is right up there with Psychic Frog in terms of being one of the best cards out of Modern Horizons 3. This has absolutely impressed me every single time I've seen it in every single shell. I think this is going to become one of the best green cards in the format. Genuinely is how I feel. This card has been bananas. Yeah, we got bodied pretty hard there. Let's go to round 3 and try to play against when there isn't Cloudpost. On the play, I don't like this hand very much. It's very kind of slow. This hand is slow, but we have engines, so I will take the engines. And I think we'd probably get rid of the Plateau here. Our deck is pretty good at playing on basics, so let's do that. Kind of wish we had an Elegant Parlor in our deck. That's something I'm feeling a lot. If our opponent plays a Cloudpost now, I'm going to lose my mind. Not a Cloudpost. All right. So you're saying we get to play Magic the Gathering. I will play this out with the intention of cycling this Timeless Dragon. I'm getting a basic Plains. Then we can play our Leyline Dowser around a daze. And if they daze it, we pay. If they don't daze it, we get to activate it. A Brainstorm from our opponent. Opponent's probably thinking, what deck just plays Mountain, Mountain? Like, maybe a really weird Painter hand? Alright, let's cycle the Timeless Dragon. Let's get a basic Plains. Quite like this Plains though, it's quite nice. We don't want to show them the Wasteland so they don't fetch around it yet. Let's play the Dowser. Alright, we're in with the Dowser. Thundering Falls. So I'm getting the impression that our opponent might be just like straight up Blue-Red Delver, but it could be like Show and Tell. Okay, that says Show and Tell to me. Oakley Dokley. Might be another tricky matchup. Where are the Death and Taxes players? A Lotus Petal. Okay. A Show and Tell. I will put in a Plateau. An Omniscience. You got an Emrakul? An Archon of Cruelty. We can beat an Archon of Cruelty. You got anything else? Low and Reveal, pretty good. Brainstorm. Yeah, this is another matchup that does technically win with creatures, but doesn't line up very well against what we're doing. Or, sorry, we don't line up very well against what they're doing. A Sneak Attack. Yeah. Let's get Dows in. Don't think this Lightning Bolt's going to be enough to carry us through. Activate the Dowser. We're looking for, like, plows. Okay, well, we can kill the Archon of Cruelty. It's not how we drew it up. A Flusterstorm. That's pretty bad for us. If we'd have played our land, we couldn't have paid for this anyway. We can play this Wasteland out. We can reduce our opponent's ability to pay red into Sneak Attack, but it's not really going to matter here. What have we got for us, opponent? An Emrakul or any other creature will do. Really? So you're saying there's a chance that if we can nuke this Archon of Cruelty, I guess we discard the Wasteland. We can do a little Forth Eorlingas and try and dig for a plow. Plains. Alright, let's have a look. We have to fire this off. We have to kill the Archon. Yep, that'll do. That's a toughie. However, Pyroblasts are not nothing here. The Lightning Bolts don't look useful at all, so they can get out of here. That gives us Pyroblast and like one silence if we want it. If they're Show and Telling in, we want to be able to kill whatever they put in, so the Wrath of God does that. Cleansing Wildfire does not seem great here. Ruination does have some text against our opponent. We showed them 2 Wastelands in their match though, so they could fetch around us and make this feel useless. Silence is not ideal, but it can stop our opponent from immediately being able to combo and let us untap and try and blow up the thing that's giving us issue. I think it's between Silences and Ruinations for what we're boarding in here. Like Ruination might just be able to cheese our opponent out in a big way. I don't hate that, but I think the Silence just having like early interactive spells is better. Like a big 4-mana Haymaker that might not do anything versus a 1-mana thing that can guarantee us another draw step. Okay. We have a thing that deals with Show and Tell. Where are all the Eldrazi aggro decks? That's what I wanted to face today. Eldrazi aggro decks, Death and Taxes, Scam, Delver. These are all decks that we would be happily smashing away. I think we play out the Arid Mesa so we can go and get a mountain in case our opponent has Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb start for a show and tell. A ponder. This is not where our Pyroblast is being pointed. Okay, a Phlage, that does something. It allows us, if they cast an Omniscient, if they put an Omniscience into play, we can put the Phlage and we get a trigger, and then we can respond to the trigger by blowing up their Omniscience, and maybe they don't get to do anything. That's an interesting timing to be aware of. We'd quite like to draw another land, so I'm not going to crack this. Swords to Plowshares. Do I want to pay some life for this? I think so. And we can just get this Dowser in. And we can either start drawing cards, or we can hold up the we can hold up the Pyroblast, and if we don't need it, we can draw a card. This means soft permission is going to be better against us. But we need to move our game plan forward, because if we give our opponent enough time, they will win the game. This is not really the matchup where you can just sit back. A Brotherhood's End. A Ponder. There's some sculpting going on over there. This can be a Plateau. Let's get Dow's in. Love this card. Doesn't love me today, but it is what it is. A Witch Enchanter. That is a very good thing to put in off of a show and tell. Is there any point of dowsing right now? I don't believe there is. I think we just pass and continue to douse. If our opponent casts show and tell, we can put in the Witch Enchanter and blow up an Omniscience. A Brainstorm. This is not what we're fighting over. Our opponent's probably going to have some interaction for us is the issue. Another Brainstorm. An Ancient Tomb. Is this the go turn? Feels like it is. I would like to cast a Pyroblast, please. Alright, it just worked. It's not always the case, but I'll take it. Right, middle land. A Timeless Dragon. We can plane cycle this. Get a basic planes. Play a basic planes. Hold up some more dowsing. And continue on with our life. So we can spin the dowser and try and find another Pyroblast. Another Brainstorm. Our opponent loves selecting. Ponder, Ponder, Brainstorm, Brainstorm, Brainstorm. They're going to run out of cantrips soon. A Sneak Attack. We don't have a good answer for this right now. We have the Witch Enchanter for next turn. We need them to put in something like an Archon. And Atraxa is a reasonable thing for us to fight against here. We have to plow this one. And hope they don't find an Emrakul in the top 10 cards. Force Will, pitching Omniscience. There's a Grizzlebrand. That's probably going into play here. There's a Grizzlebrand. Can you put into play any other creature? Or do I get a chance to play the game for one more turn? What have they chosen? Chooses Force of Will and Grizzlebrand. So they have a Force of Will, is what you're telling me. Got some more cards. Have they got an Archon? They can just put the Archon in and drain us for 3. That feels like what's happening. Yep. A real horrible matchup. We are certainly finding the wrong half of the meta for us right now. But it does show you why people don't play these sorts of decks. Because there are just some matchups that are horrible. I think we can fix the Cloud Post matchup if we just have 4 Ruinations. That would help. But this matchup is going to be a tricky one without playing, like just trying to play instants and sorceries to make our Leyline Dowser good. Let's get around 4 and see if we can find like a creature matchup. Where's your... We're looking for like Death and Taxes, Eldrazi Aggro, Cradle Control, Delver, Scam. You know, there's a lot of decks that we should be fighting against. Like Mono Red Prison is going to be good for us as well. But we're just not finding them. Okay, we've got a hand that's going to give us a little bit of breathing room to try and find something. I think this is fine. We can certainly kill some creatures. We got a Wrath. We got a Wrath of the Skies. If our opponent's some sort of combo deck, then that's going to suck. Our opponent's already going mulligan to 5. They've gone to 4. They've gone to 3. It feels like a matchup where we're going to want Silence. The reason I opted for Silence over Orim's Chant is because Silence doesn't target. And if our opponent's got like a Leyline to protect themselves or whatever, we can ignore that. Let's see if our opponent just sends something or they give us a turn to get this Reprieve under us. A Gemstone Mine. A Dark Ritual. This is going to be Necro. It is Necro. This probably just beats us. There is a fail rate to this deck. The deck's not great, to be honest. It scoots to a lot of things and has to mulligan a lot, so it's very vulnerable to things it scoots to. But we're not in a great position. Alright, so they're pitching all their Spirit Guides. Alright, they're having to Valakut Awakening. Which means they might be towards the fail rate of that deck. A Manamorphose. Sure. A Dark Ritual. Another Dark Ritual. Another Dark Ritual. You got Born Upon a Wind over there yet? Cabal Ritual. There's the Born Upon a Wind. Got Tendrils for us opponent. Lotus Petal. Another Lotus Petal. And there's the Tendrils. Alright. Yep. It's just going to be a real failure of the matchup lottery today, I think. So, Silence is good in this matchup. Pyroblast for Born Upon a Wind isn't nothing. It's certainly better than having these cards in our deck. And these cards. The Bolts are probably better than the Wrath of Gods. The Witch Enchanter is good. They don't use their graveyards, so we don't care about that. They don't have basics in their deck, so we don't care about the downside of Cleansing Wildfire. We're not going to be Ruinationing here. Wrath of the Skies, if they play out some artifact mana, we can maybe blow it up. Yeah, this is about the best it's going to get for us, I think. This does not beat our opponent. This does not beat our opponent because of the Silence being the wrong colour for the land we have. Okay, we can keep this. We don't need 2 Forth Eorlingas, do we? I don't think we need 2 Wastelands either. Our opponent's kept on 7. It's a little bit worrying. A Cabal Ritual. So this is something we respond to with a Silence. Have we got a Pact of Negation? They do have a Pact of Negation. So our opponent just gets to be on their merry way and we get to look like an absolute clown for playing our deck. Good times. Yep, keep playing your stuff out. Do your Necro Dominance trigger. Pay 19 life. So the win rate of this Necro deck is actually pretty low. It's not a problem in the meta at all. Like Force of Vigor and Force of Will decks usually sort of smash all over it. Like if you keep a 7-card hand with it, yeah, you're probably going to win. But most of the time you're mulliganing a lot just to do your one thing. And it does get broken up very easily. So it's not really a problem in the meta. But it is very good against an uninteractive deck like we are. Like we're a very interactive deck, to be fair. But just not against this sort of deck. Which is a phrase I've been saying every single round, which is a problem. Our opponent's got some Spirit Guides. They're making some mana. We're going to see a Manamorphose here. They're going to get black and blue mana. They're going to cast some rituals. They're going to cast Born Upon a Wind. But they do have a fail rate, so we have to let them click through it. That ritual. They've already got Lethal Storm, so they can just fire Tendrils at us if they want. Yep, there's the Born Upon a Wind, so now they can just do a Tendrils. They almost certainly have some protection in hand as well. They've drawn so many cards, they've probably got another Pact. They don't need to continue doing this unless they need to do some Valakut Awakening lines. Okay, they're putting a Valakut Awakening underneath Chromox. That might be so they can cast another Valakut Awakening. So they want the red mana, but then they already have the... Okay, so they got a Beseeching Mirror. This is going to go and find them a Tendrils of Agony. They're going to point it at our face, and then we're going to die. There it is. Well, that was a very uninteractive and uninspiring game of Magic for you to watch, I'm afraid. We are 0-8, which is not where I want to be, unsurprisingly. Let's see if we can play against a good old-fashioned creature deck. Okay, please be playing creatures, opponent. Just be playing Cradle Control, be playing something like that. We're just going to get clowned by something. We'll see. Look at that. Beautiful mountain, plains. A swamp. A Thoughtseize. Okay. Thoughtseize. We're looking at a combo deck? Or we're looking at something like Death Shadow? I don't know. Death Shadow doesn't really run basics that much, though. I'll play this plains. They didn't want us to blow up their land, which is curious. Maybe we're like Mono Black Saga Storm. That runs Thoughtseizes. And is a horrible matchup for us, so that would make absolute sense with where we are right now. Give me one of your finest plains, please, deck. I just have a basic. Do I think I need to... I don't think I need to Flage here. Just going to play this mountain, pass... So, the difference between Flage and Uro, there's obviously many differences, but Uro is really good to just play out whenever, whereas Flage kind of, it wants you to play it for some value. Like, just draining life for 3 isn't really worth it. Are we in, like, a fair creature matchup? Or is this going to be like, we're going to Echo Beyond you now? Retrofit is Foundry. Okay, these are fair Magic the Gathering cards. Alright, I believe. Let's get ourselves another plains. Don't want to Lightning Bolt this Orcish Bowmasters or this Arnie right now. I think I'm okay with bolting the Bowmasters. If we get the Monarch or something, we don't really want the Bowmasters in play. Right, I think we're just going to Eternalize. Let's make a big creature. Is it going to get Shoulder's Edict? It is, I think. Nope, we're just going to get a Servo. Alright, you can have a 1-1 opponent. Just don't do any combo-y stuff. Just play fair cards. Let's have some good old-fashioned Magic. None of these newfangled combo decks. Alright, Wasteland, that's not going to get anything. Liliana of the Veil. That will kill our Timeless Dragon. But we can Flage and kill the Liliana. Don't really want to be discarding any card. Well, we can certainly discard some cards. Some spare cards going. Forth Eorlingas is a pretty good draw. we could just kill the Liliana. Not doing anything. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. Dismember could get us here. We can make 3 attackers. Let's just Forth Eorlingas. So they can make a Thopter token here. So we can attack Liliana. If they put a creature in the way, it doesn't matter, and this can attack them. If we hold one guy back on blocks, what does that achieve? Nothing. We can just trade the initiative backwards and forwards. So I'll get some more damage going. Sorry, not the initiative, the Monarch. Right, they're going to make a guy. So this means they can flip this into a 4/4. Which is something we have to be aware of for attacks coming up. But we're going to just do some Flage stuff soon. That should be pretty large and in charge. Our opponent might be like Mono Black Pox. I'm getting that sort of vibe from our opponent. Mishra's Factory. Yeah, we're in Pox Town over here. Right, you can have the Monarch. A Leyline Dowser. I'm not opposed to having a Leyline Dowser kicking around. So we want to go to attacks. We want the Monarch. That means we have to attack with 2 creatures. Sure. So make a 4/4, gobble one of these up. Oh no, we messed this up. We messed this up big time, haven't we? We're supposed to play out our Wasteland first. Oh no. Because they activate this and they can trade. Oh, they're not trading here. We're just getting the Monarch, aren't we? That's quite exciting to me. And we can cast this. We can finish off their construct. We can play out a Wasteland. We can play out a Dowser, but that means we don't have access to whatever we get out of the Dowser. It's just going to be saving some mana. I think that's fine. It stops it getting thought seized. Sorry, whatever we get out of the Monarch, not the Dowser. Right, so now we can Wasteland this Mishra's Factory if they want to attack with it. Sure, they can make a 1/1. So we'll get them the Monarch. But if we're trading the Monarch backwards and forwards, it's not the worst. We've got a Flage that's coming soon. If we don't have to Wasteland the Factory this turn, we can then just Douse instead. They might Wasteland our Wasteland if that happens. But then we just Wasteland their Factory with our other Wasteland. We're seeing an attack here. They can attack with both. They can just turn this into something else anyway, so we're going to block this and actually clear it. You can get the Monarch opponent. A Barrow Goyf. Sure, it's a pretty reasonable card. So now we get to just Dowser, because we don't need to Wasteland this turn. A Lightning Bolt. So there is 3 types in the graveyard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we could just play the Flage, kill the Barrow Goyf. However, if our opponent Wastelands, that puts a land type into the graveyard, which isn't ideal for us. We could Wasteland first. Seeing some servo action maybe. This way, if our opponent taps the wrong mana, we can then Flage, alright. You know, we can't Flage it right. So the plan here is we bring back the Flage, we shoot the Barrow Goyf, and then we Lightning Bolt the Barrow Goyf. Attacks. This is a 3/3 when it attacks. But I think we just keep pushing damage here. So they can eat one of these. They block and then they activate it, targeting itself. But like I said, I think we do want the Monarch here. A Wrath of God. That's not the ideal card, but it's fine. If something goes horribly wrong, it's nice to have an escape button for all of our opponent's creatures right into the bin. At least we're getting to play some like actual magic. So they're going to nip him with their little Thopter token. We're going to say, ow, you're going to get the Monarch. And then we're going to continue Leyline Dowsing. But now when we attack with Flage, things get pretty sweet. We get to blow stuff up. We get to gain some life. We could just dome our opponent and force blocks. We've got the Wasteland to take out the Mishra's Factory. Okay, we can't take out the Mishra's Factory. Which one is the newly played one? Ah, there is no distinction between them. Because the one that can't tap is the one that we want to be able to block here, so it trades with that guy. But we don't have the luxury of knowing which one that is because of the interface. On their screen, it probably tells them which is which. I think it's the one on the back is the one that they most recently played. It is a bit awkward, though. All right, our opponent wants a servo token. Fair enough. We've also got Timeless Dragon in waiting. A Smallpox, you say? I will sacrifice my Human Knight token here. What do I like to discard? Is it Wrath of God? I think it's Wrath of God here. And I'll get rid of this Human Knight token. It does have Trample, but our opponent's able to block it very easily with the Mishra's Factory. And yes, Flage does come back, but again, just doming our opponent for 3 and we attack. We might be able to kill our opponent next turn if we draw a Forth Eorlingas, or if we draw a couple of bolts. Sacrifice this creature, please. And we can lose one of our planes. Let's mill a card. I'd very much like to have a source of Plowshares. Alright, they've had enough. Okay, so, Smallpox. Do we need any of these cards to beat Smallpox? Our opponent didn't show us any sort of like recurring creature like Bloodcast, which would make me want the Plows. I'm not big on the Reprieves here, but I think they're fine. Wrath of the Skies looks genuinely pretty good. Our opponent's probably going to try and mess with our graveyard. Honestly, I don't know. Like, they might have Urza's Saga, but we got 4 Wastelands and 2 Cleansing Wildfire. I think that's fine. We don't need to bring in Ruination for this. Alright, I think we just resend it and then see how it goes. We need lands, so we're not keeping this one. Okay, we've got some lands. I think this might be a case of putting back the Dowser. I think the Forth Eorlingas is better. We will need to find another land, but I believe I like to have removal so our opponent doesn't get ahead. An Urborg. Just a friendly neighborhood Urborg. Play a Prismatic Vista. An Urza's Saga. That's a good card. A Vexing Bauble. Does nothing against us. Another Leyline Dowser. So we can keep our removal open so that we can be more guaranteed to hit with our Forth Eorlingas. But if our opponent just plays the land, they're going to make an Urza's Saga construct. That's not really going to be very favourable for us. So I think the play here is just tap these for black mana and play the Dowser. I would rather have our opponent like Wasteland one of these or Smallpox one of these than one of the actual lands in our deck. This way they can't take us off of a colour from what's in play right now. Yeah, they're just drawing the Bauble. I think the Bauble might just be a singleton in their deck that they get off of the Saga. Alright, so we're going to see some constructs coming our way. Unless our opponent thinks they've got something better to do than constructs. Which is possible. They thought about it, decided against it. Right, I'd like a basic plains in play, and then we're just going to hold up some removal. So they make a 1-1. They make it a 2-2. So we're going to go and get ourselves a mountain and... do you want another plains or another mountain? I think it's a plains. We have less mountains. Maybe we want a mountain, actually. We have less mountains in our deck. So pulling them out is actually quite useful. Let's see what they fetch here. If they get the Boots of Running Fast. A Nile Spellbomb. Okay, so that's to try and kill our FLAVA PHLAGE. Let's see how our opponent feels about a little bit of Leyline Dowser. I'm going to Lightning Bolt your creature. Would our opponent like to stop us getting this Timeless Dragon to play? I guess the answer to that is no. They have the option to Spellbomb that. They chose not to. I think they're just more worried about FLAVA PHLAGE. Mishra's Factory. Okay. It's not a Wasteland. It's going to be a Smallpox. A Liliana of the Veil. We are going to lose our Timeless Dragon here. I will sacrifice the creature we have. I would like to find a land. That would be a really good draw here. That would allow us to kill their Liliana and make 2 bodies with our Forth Eorlingas here. Land? We found the land. Okay. So 1 goes at Liliana. 1 goes our opponent. Key on back for blocks. We get the Monarch. We kill their permanent. More cards in our pocket. Right, another land. That's going to make it very difficult for our opponent to actually just grind us fully out of this game with like Poxy Wasteland type stuff. They could have target removal to then get in and get the Monarch here. Something like a Fatal Push. A Dark Ritual. That's spooky. They're going to shrink our knights. I'm going to name knight or human. Human. This means they can attack and just get a free kill here. But I don't want them to draw any extra cards. That's my job. Especially if our opponent is spending things like Dark Ritual to get some more mana for a turn. That's card disadvantage to make that. Yeah. I think our opponent might have an Orcish Bowmasters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could play the Timeless Dragon and have a Swords to Plowshares up. We'll leave a basic up. So we're just going to front side this. So our opponent attacks, we can then plow the Engineer. Our knights become 2/2s. They can trade into the construct. Our opponent can activate the Mishra's Factory. We can double block. They're cracking the Spellbomb. That turns our PHLAGE on. Obviously, we don't have the cards in our graveyard just yet, but we'll get there. This card is very bright with the new animation on the old Summoning Sickness there. Snap off this plow. Get out of here. A Smallpox. I'll discard one of our PHLAGEs, and I'll sacrifice one of these. And I think I'm going to get rid of a Plateau here. I still want our opponent's Wastelands to be turned on. Innocent Blood. Sure, goodbye, Knight. We still have a 5/5. Another Innocent Blood? No. Put more cards in our graveyard. Alright, let's have a little bit of dowsing. Did not find anything useful. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not quite there yet. Goodbye, Mishra's Factory. Let's crack for 5 with the big old dragon. Drawing another Phlage. Any of their creatures with 3 toughness or less are going to have a bad time. An Airborg. A small pox. We'll discard a Phlage. And I guess we get rid of our tap planes. I think I would just like to have a Phlage here. It ends the game quickly. Our opponent doesn't have many resources. I've got 0 in fact. So get Plow, Plateau, Vista, Wasteland, Plains. That leaves the Eternal Dragon in there for next time. Dome our opponent for 3. There's no way we could have done this to hold up the Plow, but we can hold up a Leyline Dowser activation. Not hitting anything with this Dowser, really. Shatterskull Smashing, eh? We put our opponent to 1 this turn. We made a mistake here. We should have Leyline Dowsed to find a potential Forth Eorlingas. We'll do it now in case we find a Lightning Bolt. There it is. Bolt to the face. Alright, so we played against a fair matchup, finally, and we absolutely smashed it. That's something. Obviously, our record very much describes what this deck is about. If we're playing fair matchups where our opponent's trying to win with like creatures just turning sideways, nothing like really big, like, you know, your Emrakul's where you cast it, the cast trigger is what really wins you the game a lot of the time. You have this unkillable creature, an extra turn, etc, etc. Or like, you know, your Necrostorm or your show and tell decks where the axis we're interacting on for creatures is no good and we're not playing lock pieces, so we just don't get to stop that. If we were playing, you know, like humility type cards or whatever, then we'd be fine in that sort of matchup, but that's not the case. So yeah, the O2s and the 2Os definitely show you how polarized this deck is. But let's talk about the list. So we never got to do Wrath of the Skies, which is a shame. We had the Witch Enchanter, which could have been very good against the show and tell deck. Unfortunately, we didn't get leverage that, but maybe you want more of these to help with that sort of matchup. The Cloud Post matchup felt very, very challenging. I think we probably want 4 Ruinations in there, and we don't really need the Path to Exiles anymore, because I reckon we're just good against creature decks, good enough that we should be leveraging more cards like Ruination for matchups like that. I think we're very unfortunate playing against Cloud Post twice, but it is one of the real decks in the format right now, so it's not a huge surprise. The fact that we didn't get paired against any Delver or like scam style strategy is relatively unlikely, considering that the scam decks alone are now a third of the meta, and then the sort of Delver style decks probably make up another, you know, 15 to 20%. So you're looking at half the meta being between those 2 decks, which means we should be going across those decks half the time. And then there's also Cradle Control people playing. Lots of people playing Eldrazi now because it does seem like something that can actually hang with the meta right now. And our deck should be good against that because we're just a bunch of removal. But there are definitely limitations to what we're doing here. When we played Boros Control before, we played more incremental advantage engines in the form of things like the Wandering Emperor. Now, we don't get to do that with Leyline Dowser if we want to leverage this, but maybe we're not supposed to leverage this quite as hard as we are. And maybe Leyline Dowser is slightly better in a shell that's got counter spells, especially pitch cast counter spells like Force of the Will, because you can then go, okay, we're going to get some more cards. We're going to set up our Leyline Dowser with our Ponders and our Brainstorms. So I think Leyline Dowser is probably going to be better in your Jeskai shells, which I've played before and it felt really good. I enjoy trying it here, but I don't think this is the way. I think, given the way the format is now, you need like massive haymakers to stop certain decks. Ruination was definitely an option of being that for us, but it didn't actually come to fruition against the cloud-based deck. We never got to cast it. Our opponent blew up like 6 of our lands by turn 4 or something, or by turn 5 or something ridiculous like that. So what are we supposed to do? I think there's definitely some innovation on like the Boros control space, because when you're playing a deck like this, you're saying, I'm not going to lose to creature decks. And there's quite a lot of creature decks in the format right now. But the problem is our answers to the non-creature decks aren't good enough. Now, if we had, instead of Silence, if we had Vexing Bauble, then we would have beaten the Necro matchup, because Silence trying to cast on their turn, they cast Pact of Negation, they just win the game. Vexing Bauble on our turn, they can't Pact of Negation that, because they'll lose in their upkeep. So it just sticks in play, and then they don't get to cast like a whole bunch of their stuff. And that can usually lead us to victory. So I think we leaned too hard into Leyline Dowser for this. But, you know, it was a bit of a fun experiment, trying to try some new stuff out. And I don't think I particularly like how this worked. And I think the Boros control deck we played before, which I will link in the description, definitely check that out, was a lot stronger than this. I think that one had Urza Sagas and stuff as well. So I'd be interested to sort of revisit that with some of the learning from this and put it together. But failed experiment is still an experiment. There's still learning there. I do still love FLAVA PHLAGE as well. This card is cool. But I think this deck should just be a Jeskai deck. And we should be changing up what we're doing here. Instead of going into some of these, you know, cutesy Wrath of God, Cleansing Wildfire, Reprieve type stuff, we could just be playing a bunch of good blue cards. We can trim on our land count slightly if we're playing blue as well, because we get the cantrips, and we just end up with a better deck. I have played a Jeskai deck with Leyline Dowser, like I said. I'll put that in the description as well if you want to check it out if you missed it first time around. So I'll put both of those decks in the description. You can give them a watch if you haven't already. But we're just sort of exploring the space. Unfortunately for us, we didn't really have the matchups. Like if we'd have played against Cradle Control, Eldrazi, Death and Taxes and stuff, then, you know, a relatively easy 5-0 is what I would expect from this deck against fair creature decks. But I don't think if you're playing in a big tournament, you want to be doing any sort of matchup lottery like that. Although at this very moment in time, if you're playing in a big tournament, the meta is so narrow because of how Blue-Black Scam is just really, really overpowered. It means that you could take a deck that's very specifically hating on a few things and do good with it. Now, I'm not saying this is what you should be playing for any sort of challenges. This was just a little experiment and things. But there's no way you should be taking this into a league. Actually, that's not true. You should be taking it into a league, but you shouldn't be taking it into a league expecting to win. You would have to hit the matchup lottery quite nicely. I think each matchup you play, or each round you have a 50-50 chance to either smash the matchup or get smashed in the matchup. And there's not a lot of play in the middle there. This isn't a deck that necessarily can contest what other people's doing. If we were more aggressive, you know, maybe we could race some decks and do some stuff like that and be able to be applying pressure, but we're not really a pressure deck. So we don't have that luxury, which is why tempo decks are always good, whatever the weather, really, because tempo decks, they have a game plan that works against everything. We make a threat, we attack with it, we disrupt you a little bit. And that's going to work against pretty much every deck to some extent. Whereas something like we're doing here is either going to be great or bad. And it's kind of going to be decided when we get our matchup rather than what we're playing in game, which doesn't make it for the most interesting, I wouldn't say. Although the previous build we played of Boros definitely had a lot more going for it in terms of what we could wiggle through. But I hope you enjoyed this experiment. By all means, check out the two decks I've linked in the description. They will give you some insights of better things to do than this. But this is not the last time you see FLAGE on your screens, that's for sure. I'm going to be playing this some more. I do love this card. It's one of my favourite cards from Modern Horizons. It's just simple, right? It's a simple card. It's a lot fairer than Uro. It's not as good as Uro, obviously. But the fact that it's giving you a similar recursive threat that does some relative stuff. Like if you're actually killing something with this, then it can feel a little bit like Uro. But you also get the added joy of not having to play green in your deck. So it can fit nicely into some Jeskai shells. And we'll probably try some Jeskai control at some point with like Leyline Dowser and FLAGE. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you so much for watching this one. Please remember to like and subscribe. And goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel. A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.